I'm Taiwo, and this is Medical Experts in Football. My first guest is a physical therapist who has his doctorate in physical therapy, sports clinical specialist, and many more certifications to add to his name. He now works for one of the most powerful teams in the world, the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team. I welcome you, Carlos Jimenez. We're going to go back to you being a young boy in Venezuela. How would you describe your town?
Well, it was different than growing up in Miami because I live in a kind of like an urban type of area of town. So we have buildings right next to each other and had friends that could just like come out from one building and just literally like go to the next building and have like a couple of friends. We just like hang out and play soccer on the streets and baseball on the streets on the weekends. And, it was we could just literally just walk everywhere and just have fun as a kid.
You said you played baseball and soccer. Were there any other sports you were involved in?
So I grew up playing a lot of sports. If you're from Venezuela, you have to play baseball. I mean, that's a given. But my mom told me that I was bored when I was playing it. And she said, "Oh, let me put you in soccer." And I was like, I love soccer. So yeah. But yeah, I grew up playing, baseball, soccer, and then when I moved to the US, was playing like volleyball. And
What drew your interest about soccer?
we didn't have big players in my country as we do now. So it was just, I loved the sport. It was fun for me just to play outside and, just you can play anywhere. You just need a ball and just put
Yeah.
like a little two rocks on the side, just make a goal. And that was pretty much it.
So why was it important that your family moved to the States?
My mom, she was the one that decided. I mean, it wasn't me. I was a young kid, 16, 15 years old. So I had no idea of the world. She was the one that wanted to do something different. She wanted to try a new, she wanted to do this for me and my other brother. So she's from Ecuador, actually. So she moved from Ecuador, immigrated to Venezuela, and then again immigrated to the US. So we are six in the family. So, it's, I own everything because of what the decision she made then. If not, I mean, things would have been very different for me for sure. So, yeah.
And what was it like for her having to obviously work and support the
Mhm.
family? How was that?
It was hard. I mean, she obviously she didn't know the language first of all, so that makes it a little bit difficult. And we went to a town where it was called Fort Lauderdale, so it's like it's not Miami where you have more of a Hispanic influence, but over there was more of a American influence, African American influence, and she would like go early in the morning, like 4 or 5 a.m., take the bus, and I'll see her like late at night after she came back, and I would just go to high school here. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was. I mean, it was tough for her. Like now, when I talk to her, I get to understand because when you're at that age, she's working, but you don't get to understand the struggle. But now I'm like, it's I get to appreciate it more.
Yeah, wow. So after graduating with your physical therapy degree in 2012, what did you envision your dream job to be?
So I always wanted to work in soccer. That was like my first passion, as because I wanted to play soccer professionally, right? But obviously I wasn't good enough. So then you're like, okay, what else am I gonna do? I want to still, be relevant in sport. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do PT school. I took PT school route because I didn't know anything about athletic training. In my country, there's no such a thing as an athletic trainer. I mean, many countries in the world, there's no such a thing as an athletic trainer, right? So it's only here, probably Canada and maybe Japan. Um, I don't know, maybe I'm missing a couple more, but for me, it was like, okay, I don't want to be in the medical aspect. Like, I don't want to be a nurse. I don't want to be a doctor. I didn't have the passion to be a doctor. So I'm like, okay, I want to do PT and I want to be staying in sports. So I did my bachelor's in more like exercise science. And I was always doing a lot of things with soccer on the side during school all the time, either being like coaching kids or being part of the academy system down here in Miami. And after that, I always wanted to work for the national team for Venezuela or a professional team. It was hard because then I had to decide if I wanted to just go into sports science or go more into PT. Then I was like, okay, I had the chance at my school, we were able to be grandfathering to the PT school program.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, let me try the PT route, and I did it.
And I saw you also did a lot of training, like personal fitness training while you were in PT school and afterwards. How did
Yeah.
that help you set yourself up for success today?
A lot of what we do is a lot of soft skills. To put that on the side, right? I think being a personal trainer, working with people day to day, understanding their needs, being able to communicate with them, understanding where they come from, just to talk, right? Like that's 90% of what we're doing with our patients and clients at any level. It
Mhm.
doesn't really matter if you're working with the top soccer player or you're just working with a 80-year-old person that comes into the clinic. I think the soft skills are a valuable skill to develop early on, because you can learn any skill, right? You can actually, after read all the research you want, you can, be a professor and everything. But if you don't have the soft skills at this level, it sometimes comes harder to get buy-in from the players, to get buy-in from your patient, right?
So you've traveled to many states and even countries such as Poland for
Yeah,
work. What's
yeah.
a memory that sticks out in that country?
I mean, I still have a couple of good friends that I work there with. I The country, I'll say, I mean, beer. They love their beers, and I mean, I travel a lot in Poland, and I learned a lot about the history and World War II and stuff that I knew, but you don't really know until you're there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. I really enjoyed a lot, and I actually, all the memories that I have with the team, especially being able to win the league that time, and then we were in Champions League. We played like Madrid, we played Sporting Club, we
Mhm.
played Borussia Dortmund, and it was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it that I was there, right? Like, for me, this kid coming from Venezuela to be there is like unbelievable. I still don't believe that I'm doing what I'm doing right now with this
Uh-huh.
the U.S. national team.
How does it feel being in that type of stadium?
Well, and especially in Poland, it's so interesting. I invite you to watch, just go on Google and watch Legia Warsaw, that's the
Mhm.
team name, and just put fans or what hooligans. I mean, you'll be amazed. I've never been to anything like that, and it's so different. I was a fan of the team just because of these guys, the way they lived
Mhm.
through their team, right? Like that was their life. I mean, their songs, they were there every day, every game they were there. I mean, if you lose, you feel like people were upset and all of these things, right? Like I miss that because I love the adrenaline to be in that atmosphere. It's a little bit different in the US with the teams that I work with.
It sounds like that was an incredible experience, but I imagine there had to have been some sacrifices making that move to Poland. How did that jump impact your professional and personal life?
It did actually. So at that point, I was doing my own business here in Miami. And when I got that call from my friend in Poland to work with the team, I was like, oh, my business was doing so much better now, and I was able to like grow it, right? And it was a point that I think that was the point that I had to decide, okay, what do I want to do? If I let that go, then I don't think I will get the experience to work at the highest level in soccer, and that will probably set me up for the other things that set me up then.
Mhm.
So it was a sacrifice. I left my business at the time. It was ran by another friend of mine, but then things didn't go well, right? I mean, I was over there. I was the name of the business. Then people knew me, right? This is what it is, and it was stressful because I was trying to deal with people like texting me from Miami over there. I was like, okay, I was too immature. I was immature in the business. I didn't know what I was doing. I was doing well because it was me, but to actually make it as a business, it wasn't a business yet. It was just Carlos, the PT, who knew people and they would see me, but it was harder for them to see other people, right? That was one of them. So obviously leaving my family, I think I got homesick a little bit over there.
Mhm.
The language I learned because the team will give you a tutor and you have to practice. And you practice with with your players and everything. But it gets to you a little bit after a while. It was a tough year, but it helped me to grow to be where I am right now. So I think you have to go through those rough patches in life to grow.
Okay, so before working for the US women's national team, you spent 2 years working with the US Olympics and Paralympic Committee. How was that experience?
It was another challenge for me because this is Carlos coming in from a soccer background, right? That's all I knew. Soccer is my passion. I knew soccer. You ask me anything about soccer, injuries, I know everything. Walking, I was fortunate enough to actually, before to get the opportunity, I did a volunteer program with them a few years before, and it was like a 2 weeks. It's actually, I recommend this to a lot of PTs out there, where you do a 2 week volunteer time with the Olympic Committee, and you get to be with them. They host you, give you housing and food, and obviously they won't pay you, but you get to work with the athletes and be involved in that environment. So I did it. From that's why I got this opportunity, by the way. So when I got to the Olympics, I was like, okay, how do I didn't know anything about gymnastics. I didn't know anything about swimming. I mean, I know how to swim, but I didn't know how to work with Katie Ledecky or like athletes that I have not, I respect them so much because of what they do, but this is me and working on her shoulders or stuff like that. Like, okay, I'm doing good, but then you have a boxer walking into the sports medicine room and you have to work with them, and then you have a figure skater walking in with like hip issues, and then it's just this different sports that I have to work with, and I just have to evolve a lot to understand each sport, to understand gymnastics, to understand the movements that we're doing on the bars, on the everything. So it was just an incredible experience, and I was fortunate to, like I said, I did my volunteer program. They liked what I did, and I was able to to make it to the final interview, and I got the job. But it was just because I volunteered with them, and they remembered me because of that. So yeah.
Now, you talked about all the sports you worked with. What helped you understand the sports? Was it like you watching the sports on TV, watching their mechanics?
You have to dive into the sport, right? So let's say this is funny story, and uh, I still talk to this guy. He was a diver. I think it was a 10-meter diver, and he deal with medical issues, whatever. But obviously, ask me anything about diving, I have no idea. So I have to like talk to him to teach me about the sport, and he came up with, well, he helped me to come up with like an Excel spreadsheet where we will kind of quantify his jumps and the type of jump, the difficulty of the jump, and how much discomfort that jump would cause. That's one way that I did it. Like, I didn't know anything about diving, so it's just one way to come out. Like gymnastics, I would just go to practice all the time just to watch and do things. Just let me be there, just understand what they're doing, and you talk to them afterwards. Hey, what is this? What is that? Move that you did, or on the rings, what is it called? Just kind of like, just have to talk to them again. Soft skills, communicate with them, and you have to have open mind to learn from them, and to accept that things that you don't know. And I think people will appreciate that more, that instead of you coming into a room, you're like, yeah, I know everything, because in reality we don't. But then sometimes you will have situations like this where I didn't know anything about most of the sports that I was watching. I knew about the injuries, I know about rotator cuff impingement or secondary impingement, whatever, but I didn't know anything about when did it cause the pain when he was on the rings or doing stuff, right? So that's where you have to be open-minded and learn from them, and that will guide you through. I mean, these athletes are so amazing. I think Olympic athletes are incredible people. I really like to work with them a lot.
Cool. Now, you have experience working for the Venezuelan men's national team. I believe it was 2016.
Mhm.
Why the US women's national team?
So I always work with men, right? So I didn't grow up, unfortunately, I think I didn't know anything about women's soccer, right? It's just, I wouldn't call it maybe ignorance or something like that. Maybe in my country, in Venezuela, then that was not a thing. Now it is growing, the women's soccer. So all I was exposed to was women soccer, right? I had connections with the Venezuelan national team and the federation back then. So I was fortunate to work with the under 20 uh, and then the national team, senior national team for the Copa America in 2016. I think that when I was working at the Olympic Committee, then I was like, I did this for about 2 years and a half, 3 years at the Olympic Committee, and I think I was ready to maybe give it another chance because I think I was burnt out a little bit. As I told you, I was doing a lot just to try to make myself to get to the top level. So I think I got burned out and I hated soccer for a little bit for a long time. It's like I didn't want to know about the sport. I just want to do something there's no stress, that I have nothing to do with any of the sport, anything about it. So I think that's why I wanted to give myself another chance, and I saw this opportunity, and yeah, why not? I mean, they are the best team in the world, and
And
if I had the chance, then why not?
and how do you feel about being a PT for one of the most dominant teams in the world?
I am very grateful to be in the team. First of all, the players and the staff, they have accepted me as one of their own. And it's been a year and maybe like 3 months that I've been in this job, right? Last year was kind of weird. We did a few camps before COVID. I mean, working with this team is an honor for me because of what it represents in the world. You have icons, right? There that go beyond the sport. My mom, she's 70 years old. She is from South America. She knows Megan Rapinoe.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Megan Rapinoe doesn't speak Spanish, my mom knows about her. I'm like, that tells you a lot of how these players, transcend beyond the sport of soccer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's been an honor to work with a lot of great people, not only the athletes, but the staff that I work with. I'm very lucky.
Incredible. I do have to ask you, where and what were you doing when you found out you were offered the position?
I actually was in Colorado Springs. I was at my job with the Olympic Committee, and I talked to my boss and everything. So yeah, I was working with them. So it was not an easy decision
What was hard about that decision?
because working at the Olympic Committee, you're still working with the best of the best in the world, right? Like there's no doubt that it's not soccer, but you're still working with the best track and field athletes that I had to work with. um, Best swimmers, best boxers, best. I mean, just name it, right? It's every team but the best. So I was fortunate to be there. I was like, I know I'm leaving, but I'll go always to a best, also the best team in the world. It was hard because I had really good relationship with the people that I was working with, and I value that a lot. One of the things that we shouldn't forget when you're taking a job is who are the people you're working with. I think that you have to value that as well. So it wasn't an easy decision. I had a lot of conversations with my family, my girlfriend, a lot of people that I trust to kind of like, am I making the right decision? Is this the right move for me? But you just have to just take the decision and go for it. I don't regret anything, but it's just that I have to say that I was working with the great people, great human beings at the Olympic Training Center.
And before your first day with the U.S. Women's National Team in 2019, you
Mhm.
gave Dave Nabham and Dave Taylor a shout out. How did those two individuals contribute to your development?
Huge. Before I came to the Olympic Training Center, I was PT that a lot about the injuries and all these things, but I wasn't comfortable with managing and understanding data. Coming there to working with these people, they already had a system, a structure for you to develop also I would call myself ever a data scientist, but to understand data and how to utilize it on your favor. And yeah, that's why I did a shout out to them. But there's a lot of people there that I
Mhm.
didn't mention, but those two were the ones that I learned a lot on the data aspect, and now I'm using it more because of them.
So let's talk about team training camp because I don't know if, well, you do remember, but we had our interview set for a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago, but couldn't
sorry.
happen because you were in camp.
I know, right?
Can you just take me through what a day is like in camp? It just seems really chaotic, unpredictable.
Yeah, it is. It's part of that environment. You have to accept unpredictability. You have to accept that things are not going to work out the way you want, but you just have to deal with that. So, a typical day would be, let's say, if we only have one training a day. I mean, usually we wake up around 8 a.m., breakfast. Well, wake up early, work out, 8 a.m., breakfast. Then we have clinical hours with the players from, let's say, 9 to 11 ish. No, and then we go to practice. Then from 11:30 to like 1 on the field. Then we come back. Then again open the clinic hours for the players from like 3 to 6, 3 to 5, and then later at night we open up again, and then we finish up around at 10 p.m. Typical day. If we have 2 sessions a day, it will change, but I think the typical day will. That's the way it goes.
So when you say open clinic hours, is that for players to come to the treatment room to
Yeah,
get any injuries taken care of?
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we what we do is we just have hours for them, and whoever sign up for the hours, then we work with them depending on what.
Okay. Now,
Mhm.
during practices, besides watching out for any injuries, what other things are you looking out for?
In our high performance structure, we actually help during the warm up. We help with the activation part. We get them moving. We get them to prepare them for the session. If there's an athlete that has an injury, then what I will do in collaboration with the athletic trainer and the sports scientist, we take the player out on the side and we do some extra work or different work for the player. I do whatever it is. I mean, I'm not an athletic trainer, so we are lucky we have amazing athletic trainers on the field that are looking out for any injuries. We have a medical doctor there as well. So I just either help the equipment manager, just get the balls, checking balls, get the
Mhm.
players set up for like shooting drills, like help them out, help the coach to be a linesman sometime as well. Yeah, honestly, I do whatever it takes. Like I don't care.
So, considering the limited time you have with the national team, how do you make the most of your time with the players when it comes to ensuring they are physically ready for the competition?
That's a good question. I think it goes down to every player has their own different needs and they have their own resources at their hand. Definitely communicating with them, and obviously Steve, he is also obviously involved in this a lot. Right, some players are playing in some teams that are amazing, like Manchester City. They
Mhm.
have amazing resources. There are other teams that don't have that. So but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it all goes down to every single player because of locations and club status. But it's difficult. It's not a black and white on
Yeah.
this situation. Yeah,
So it sounds like at times you are in communication with their respective club teams, medical staff, huh?
yeah, that's
Okay.
normal. I think that's usually what most people do. But I think also as a high performance team, we get on calls with them regularly to check up on the athletes to see how they're doing.
What happens when there's like a disagreement when it comes to how the club is managing an injury versus what the national team, how they would manage it?
Um,
Or does that even happen?
I don't think disagreements like, oh, this is wrong, this is right. No, I think it just the way things are handled might disagree, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's a wrong or right answer. It's the way how you reach to that end goal, which is getting the player safely and back to play soccer, right? There's a saying that there's not only one way to roam. With that being said, that we have to also respect how they're seeing their players and depending on the injuries, how they're going to approach that, as long as it's not crazy. I mean, most of the people are working with great clinicians, great doctors. So I don't think there's disagreements.
So at times, coaches and managers seem to have differing time frames when it comes to getting an athlete back on the pitch. Now, when you're not able to get an athlete game ready in that given time frame, what goes through your mind before having the conversation with the team.
That's why sometimes you don't want to give times or give very vague times. It can backfire. But when you're caught up in that situation, accept and communicate with the coaches that things didn't go the way you thought they were going to go, and have to, reassess the situation and go back with your team and see where, first of all, make sure that this doesn't happen again, or if it happens again, things are going to happen. I mean, it's unfortunately, as much as we want to think that we have all this technology, we have everything, all the money available to do things, I think at the end of the day, still, it's not a perfect system. We can only prevent injuries, we can only estimate when they're going to come back, but some players might come back quicker and sooner than others. Some others will return later, even though they have the same injuries. So coaches they don't like if you tell them something and then it changes, especially if it's a key player.
So would you say you have had fairly good responses from coaches being that vague about regarding to an athlete getting back at a
Mhm.
certain time period? Have you ever had an instance where maybe a coach just went off on you?
Personally, I haven't. Especially in this team, I don't, because most of the communication will go through the head athletic trainer. So I just communicate through him. Unfortunately, he's the one that's taking the heat. But in other teams, like at the Olympic Training Center, I will have to just talk to some coaches. But like I said, being fortunate to work with coaches that are understanding.
Now, so far, what has been the biggest sacrifice you've made to work for the U.S. Women's National Team?
I mean, it's kind of selfish. I don't think I've made any huge sacrifice. I think they have, helped me in a lot of ways. I think the federation has supported me in a lot of ways and resources, being flexible with many things. So I'll be honest with you. I think, I mean, obviously being far from my family and girlfriend, but that's part of the job that you're doing, right? I mean, it's on me. I am the one taking this job, and I am accepting that comes with this job, right?
Okay, so with the Olympics pushed back till this year, how are you feeling that it's just a couple months away?
Well, we're definitely feeling it right now. I think, as personally, I'm excited. I mean, it's gonna be also a dream for me come true to just go to the Olympics and be with a great team, representing again the US also would mean a lot to me. And I mean, you feel it now that things are ramping up really quick. We have camps coming up really quick and fast and furious, pretty much. So I think, I mean, dynamics will change. I think people more stressed, they'll be a little bit, but yeah, but it's exciting, right? That this
Mhm.
is what I think people like me and others that work in the sports industry like that adrenaline, like that pressure, like enjoy it.
Now, you may know this stat, but since 1996, the U.S. women's national team has not missed a single Olympic. They've won 4 gold
Mm,
medals, but last Olympics, they were knocked out by Sweden, which was their earliest Olympic exit ever. Knowing
mm.
that, what type of pressure are you feeling?
That's kind of more like a coaching staff question. I don't know if I feel comfortable, but I'll tell you personally how I feel.
Uh-huh.
I think with what you said, and I know that no one has done like a back to back either, no World Cup and Olympics either,
Right.
right? From what I've seen and what I've heard, I think that's actually a motivation for a lot of us. I mean, personally, I feel like whatever I can, my 2 cents, I can, help the team. It's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do the best I can. There's pressure, obviously, but I think I'm just gonna talk in general. I think this team of players, they're so amazing, and they've been through a lot of stressful situations and in competitions and tournaments in the past. So I think they thrive under pressure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, come Tokyo, aside from winning the gold medal, what will success look like for you as a physical therapist?
Just go back to the basics. I
Hmm.
mean, we want to think of the fancy stuff, but I just think that if I do right, if I do everything what I need to do for the player, either this basic stuff to my good joint mobs for the day for the player, getting a good activation program for the player, um, just stuff like that. I just that's where I need to do the best I can, and I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces in a team. But I think that if I can just do that the best I can, yeah, I mean, the rest will, I will feel better for myself. And I know that I did the best I could to help the team.
Now, you said when you're not in training camp, you're able to take some weeks, whether that's Miami, Colorado. What else do you fill your free time with?
I enjoy playing tennis. So that's one of my things that I
Oh.
actually like to do a lot. Obviously, I would love to play soccer because, but right now I don't want to put myself out there with people that I don't know because of
Hmm.
COVID. But I think yeah, tennis is my second favorite sport. It's just unfortunately I didn't grow up playing. Like I said, I play all the sports but tennis.
Hmm.
But then I started playing tennis like 3 or 4 years ago. But I mean, I just love it, and it's just fun.
It is fun. Now, your journey from the time you graduated physical therapy school to now, what were some of your toughest roadblocks?
Toughest, long hours.
Hmm.
Seriously, starting like say I was in PT school, working as a personal trainer, working sometimes on the side with kids, like coaching, whatever, soccer. And then after graduation time, be like, okay, I want to do everything, right? So I was working in a clinic, I was working with a club early in the morning. We did like 7 a.m. practice, finish up practice around noon, 1. Then we run to the clinic, be at the clinic around 1, 2 p.m., and then close the clinic until like 7, 8 p.m., finishing up notes. So I was like literally out all day, every day. So I think that was the main obstacle. But I think people, especially PTs, we have to put in more time if you want to break into the industry of sports because of the limitations that we don't have an easier access, or just because we are not involved in sports when we're in school. Some programs are not as
Hmm.
involved. But I think the hours that I had to put in, I mean, definitely paid off, right? I'm here. I'm happy that
Yeah.
I'm here where I am right now. But it was 12, 13, 14 hours a day that I was just out there just doing work. So,
At any point, did you question, like, is this even worth it?
you do, but I was young and I didn't care. So it's like I'm just gonna go for it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I was lucky that I was pushing through and going through working with clubs here and there, and then we do well. Then I get another opportunity. So I was always like getting, it's when you give a kid like a candy, you're like, oh yeah, I did this, and you get a positive reinforcement. And I was lucky to do that. And get a
Hmm.
positive reinforcement and keep going, right? So you keep that momentum, and I was lucky to meet people in throughout my career so far that has helped me to be where I am right now. So
Hmm. Do you know that there are some clinicians who currently work in an outpatient setting and maybe they have
mhm.
aspirations to work for a team? But
Yeah.
how would you compare like the autonomy working for the national team to an outpatient setting? Some people think that, if you're working for a big time team, you don't have as much of a say when it comes to
hmm
treatment
hmm
or
Got it.
prescribing exercises.
Yes, but you have to understand your role, right? I think when there is disappointment, it's because your expectations are not meeting the reality. I've traveled to a lot of places and worked with different people, and I've got to understand my role in the team that I work with. There are differences, right? I think if you obviously own a PT clinic, and if you just work in a PT clinic outpatient, then you have obviously more say over the treatment plan or expectations for that athlete. But then when you work in a team, as whatever this one or other teams that I've worked in the past, you have more people that you have to collaborate with, and you have to be open-minded to listen to what they're saying. You have sports scientists that are giving you information and collaborating with you. You have athletic trainers that also have a saying. Autonomy is different, but I enjoy the collaboration part.
Hmm.
I don't like to just do things on my own and think, oh, this is the only way, because in reality, no. I mean, you have a soft tissue injury, there are different ways you can get a player to the same point. Yeah, they're meeting some criteria to get there, but you can read a lot of research and look at how many ways you can return a player from a hamstring injury, and there are different ways.
Mhm.
And it goes down to which one do you want to do, and which criteria, which check boxes you want to take into consideration when returning the player. It's very different, but I enjoy the collaboration part. And you have to adapt to that and to work at this level. If not, you're not going to succeed. Again, you're going to be disappointed because expectations are not meeting up with the reality.
Now, if there's one thing you would have done differently along your journey so far, what would that have been?
When you're young and you are doing a lot of things, you put aside your personal life. Right? I had a relationship that was for a long time and then didn't work out because I was just doing my own thing. So I'm happy now. I mean, I have no regrets on that, but I think at that point in time, I was just so caught up in my own world that I had to do it. I feel like, but it's just part of life. But you learn, and now I get to appreciate my job, but then also appreciate the time that I'm with my family, my girlfriend, and people that I like, my dog.